This past year, I've made over $600,000 of sales for my business, but it wasn't always like this. But not long ago, I was actually stuck wondering when and where my next client was going to come from, being physically unable to scale my business to the point where I wanted it to, as I was stuck at just a few clients. After learning these 10 lessons that I'm going to share with you in today's video, I was able to scale my business to a $100,000 month, and now we consistently bring on around 10 high-ticket new clients every month that generate anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for us. These 10 lessons are proven to consistently grow your business, whether you're selling a product or a service. But unfortunately, the reality is if you can't sit here and concentrate for these lessons, then you're just not going to make it in business. But without further ado, let's get into these 10 lessons that help me grow my business to $100,000. The first lesson is arguably the most important, and it actually comes from just understanding that sales is like the oxygen to your business. Without sales, everything stops. Whatever business you're in, you need sales to pay your staff, to pay your wages, to pay your rent, effectively to pay everything the business actually needs to survive. And without it, it's like cutting the oxygen supply. It just won't last long. The reason why this is so important is because it helped me have a mindset shift. When I very first started my business, I very much was a believer in I needed everything to be perfect before I actually went out and sold my solution to the market. And this just meant that I kept delaying things. I thought the website wasn't quite ready. I thought my product, my service wasn't quite ready. And it meant that I didn't quite want to get it out there into the world just yet. But this was a huge mistake, because ultimately all of that time that I spent worrying that my product or my service or my website wasn't 100%, I was missing out on sales. And the reality is, especially when you're first getting started, sales is the only thing that will actually bring you success, because you just don't have a big enough team to support a great product yet. You might have a great idea, but guess what? You need a great team to bring that to life. And unfortunately, without sales, how are you going to feed your team members? How are you going to even pay for them? It's just not possible. So I would argue the only thing you need to focus on as you're starting your business is bringing sales in, right? It's the oxygen to your business, and it should be the #1 priority as you're just starting out, to focus on sales. So what this looks like from a practical standpoint is if you're building one of your first businesses, stop worrying about what your website looks like. Stop worrying about all the specific sales copy in your newsletter or on the landing page. Just get out there and make sales. Like literally, that's the only thing you need to focus on. That's how I started hitting my first 10, 20, 30K month, was literally just going sales, sales, sales. And then guess what? Because you're doing the reps on the back end to fulfill for your clients, you also learn the service at the same time. So honestly, if you're in that phase where you haven't hit $10,000 a month yet, or £10,000, sales, 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 sales. Just focus on sales. But don't worry, in this video, I'm going to teach you how I focused on sales and how you can do the same. But that's lesson #1. Just simply focus on sales if you're in the early stages of your business. Lesson #2 comes off the back of this. Now, one of the most important things about sales is being consistent and being persistent with the leads that you're reaching out to. It's very hard, I think, for most people to stay extremely disciplined and consistent, following up on leads every single day and just being on top of them 24/7. So that's why I recommend you use automation. There's many benefits to this, but one of the biggest ones within sales is you don't get in the way of your own head. For example, as you're selling to your prospects, you're probably thinking, oh, I just reached out to them 3 days ago. Should I reach out again? I'm not quite sure whether, what they're going to think, if they're going to think I'm pestering them. And you're going to get into your own head before you even know it. And this is one of the biggest problems with sales, right? If you're doing everything manually, all you need to focus on is doing the inputs. It's oftentimes that your mind, your thoughts, and your beliefs are going to stop you from doing the inputs. So I learned to rely on automation, right? So automation would do it regardless. I'm not physically sending that message to that person following up for the 10th time, because in my gut, I probably wouldn't want to, but it's necessary to get the end result. So I used automation to help me do that. So to actually bring on your first few clients, or at least get to that first 10, £20,000 a month mark, I would rely on automation in your sales process to help you do this. The main 2 channels that we use that are really successful are LinkedIn, where we use an automation tool called Dripify, and email, which we use an automation tool called smartlead.ai. And I'm actually featured on a few of their videos as well. But automation is so important because it won't allow you to get in your own head. It won't have days off, unlike you probably will. And it's going to build a consistent, steady pipeline of leads for you to get back to. Now, I'm not saying just rely on automation and let the automation do absolutely everything, but it will really help you get a lot of outreach done. Now, that being said, it's really important important that we cover lesson 3 because none of your outreach will actually work if you don't have this. And that is a very strong value proposition, right? So a value proposition is effectively the value that you can provide to a market. Now, before you start selling your service or your product, you need to get really clear on what this value proposition is and how it actually helps people. A lot of times I see business owners, especially in the early days, make mistakes because they come up with something that they think is really valuable, but the market might not, right? So you need to understand, what does your market actually want and what's the value you can provide them? Once again, people buy the end result of the service, not actually you putting in the hours yourself, because you could just be an employee at that point. So in order for your outreach to work effectively and for the automation to work alongside that, you need to have a strong value proposition. And the way I do this is simply focus on the end outcome that your product or service achieves. For example, it's much easier to sell a fat loss program if you're just selling it as like, you'll get in the best shape of your life. This is what you'll look like, ripped, shredded, six pack. As opposed to, this is what you've got to do. 12 weeks of diet, cutting out your carbs, waking up early, doing runs. Effectively, you're selling the same thing. You're selling weight loss. There's two very different ways to do it, right? And one portrays value in a really nice way, an attractive way, and one doesn't really show the value, it just shows all the hard work. And this could be what you're doing with your offer and your service. You want to basically just highlight the good stuff that they'll be able to take away from it, not all the work, the effort, the sacrifice, the time they've got to put into it. So focus on your value proposition. As you're creating your outreach, think about what are the things that actually truly help your market, truly help your prospects, and lean on those. As soon as I started doing this in my business, I realized that most of the clients we partner with just wanted leads in their calendar. They didn't care about what sort of AI automation we were using. They didn't care about all this fancy technical stuff we're doing in the back end or who's working on my team. They simply wanted leads who want to speak with them in their calendar. So that's effectively what we ended up selling them. And lo and behold, it worked much, much better, talking about the end result that helped them achieve what they want. But that brings us on to lesson number 4, and that's understanding what your market truly wants. This is obviously very similar to the value proposition, but you can't create a really, really solid value proposition without truly understanding what your market wants. You might think you know what they want, but you need to understand on a really deep fundamental level. This is extremely important because if you're not selling to your market what they truly feel like they want, they're just not going to be interested by it. You can do all the outreach, all the sales, all of the marketing in the world, but they're just not going to get excited enough to actually book a call with you, to speak with you, and ultimately to buy from you. So you need to figure out what your market truly wants. The market that I sell to, I understand that a lot of them, especially if they're a bit older, they want to get their time back. More than just leads on their calendar, more than just increased revenue. They actually want to buy their time back so they can spend time with their family, with their wife, their kids, and so on. And weaving this into the marketing message, into the outreach, and into our sales pitches allows us to see significantly more success. But this is different for every market, and that's why it's really, really important to go to a deep level in understanding what your market wants. You might think, oh, of course, my market's like every other market. They just want more leads. They just want more money. But why do they want that? What is it about them, right? If you're selling to young male business owners or young male entrepreneurs, it could be something different. It could be for the lifestyle, it could be for the cars, it could be for the girls, whatever it might be. But if you understand that driving force, that driving factor, it will make your whole sales process much, much easier to execute on, and you'll see better results. If you're really struggling with this, even ask ChatGPT, but ask the deep questions, right? Obviously, everyone wants to make more money. That's the whole point of having a business. But go a step further and ask why. And that will really help you out. Then ultimately lesson 5 stems off the back of this, and that's really to sell your prospects what they want, but give them what they need. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs perform this successfully, and it works really, really well if you understand what your market truly wants and you can genuinely help them. For example, most businesses out there, simply put, they just want more leads. They don't understand that it might actually be an issue with their sales process, issue with their product, it could be an issue with their customer support team, but they think that leads are gonna solve them the issue for some reason, right? Pretty much every business owner that I speak with thinks in that way. If you understand this bit of information, you can understand that you can sell your product or your service to tailor it to what they want, but actually in the back end, give them what they need. And here's what I mean by this. Say you had a B2B client client that came to you and they need help with their sales process. You look at the numbers and actually you figure out their close rate is awful. It's like 5 or 10%. The problem, the business owner might not identify this being the problem. They might just think they need more leads, right? They're getting 5-10% close rate on their calls. That's just, it is what it is. Let's just top up the funnel even more. But you, as the business owner and the consultant that can help them, would realize actually we had the same amount of leads, but we got to a 20% close rate, which is very, very achievable. We could 2 to 4x the revenue of that business, right? And that's something you should focus on. But when you're selling your service, you don't necessarily want to sell it like that. You don't want to sell the close rate efficiency increase because it sounds too technical. They don't really understand it. You can sell businesses more leads, it will turn into more sales, it will turn into more revenue. And that's how you can get your foot in the door. But on the back end, you can actually deliver what they truly need to help their business. And in this case, it could potentially be training of the closer, more efficient sales systems, a better script or framework on the sales call, but it will achieve the same result, which is making the business owner more money, right? But you'd never get in that conversation in the first place if you didn't appeal what they think they want in the first place. This has actually happened with myself before. There's someone who's helped out my business, and when we first started working together, I just thought, great, they're gonna help me bring on more leads, right? They're gonna use these new different ways of doing it, get me more leads, fill up my calendars even more. As soon as they came on, we realized, what's the point in doing this if we have big gaping hole in our sales, like our closing process, right? The closers aren't performing. What's the point in funneling more leads and burning through more of the market if we're not closing these leads? So I originally started thinking that leads would solve my problem. However, once I'd already paid for that service and started to move forward with it, we identified what I actually truly needed was to optimize my conversion rate, not to get more leads. But the thing that got my attention in the first place was someone saying they could help me get what I wanted, which was more leads. So package your sales up in a way that presents your prospects with what they feel like they want, but it delivers them what they actually truly need. And that's how you'll generate lifelong customers. And that one leads me on to point 6. So this one's really, really important and is often overlooked, especially in the info space and the online space. And this is having a great product, right? So none of that stuff will work in terms of creating a lifelong customer if you don't truly have a great product that is genuinely going to help them. Now, you might be saying, oh, Harry, I thought you said just focus on sales as you're getting started. Now, yes, of course, you need sales so that you can invest into your product, right? This is how it works. You need to understand if there's actually product market fit in the first place and there's a demand for what you do. Or assuming there is, assuming you're getting some sales, assuming you're making some money, then it's time to not obviously blow that cash, but to reinvest it back into your product and build a great product. The numbers actually work out incredibly well here if you build a great product. What happens is that you can spend X amount of dollars to acquire a client. Let's say $300 you spend to acquire a client through ads, through content, or through cold outreach, whatever it is. Now, what happens when you have a great product is that client might stay 2 times as long, 3 times as long, 4 times as long. Now, for example, say you spent $300 to acquire a client and their LTV on average is $3,000, right? So you've made 90% margin in terms of acquiring that client. Now, if you have that client on for 2 times as long, you've decreased effectively the overall cost per acquisition. You can double it and still make the same profit margin. So it means if you have a good product, you can spend even more on marketing and remain more profitable. That maths might take a while to understand, but effectively, the longer someone stays paying you, you can eventually spend more and more and more to acquire customers similar to that. And this is what a load of the big software companies do, right? They understand this. That's why their churn is so low. They keep customers for a long time and it allows them to scale in a compound manner because those clients that are with them for, say, years on end, just continually spending more, spending more, spending more. But the business didn't spend more money to acquire those. So effectively, you're making more money for free, right? Obviously, you're fulfilling on the service, but if that's a software product, it's not gonna be very much. If it's an agency, you still got a good margin. Effectively, the moral of the story is if you work on your product and you can increase LTV and minimize churn, which is how many people leave you, you'll be able to make significantly more money and spend less. And there's so many upsides to it. So you should always focus on your product once you have those sales coming in. Don't go splashing your cash. Put it back into the business and build a better product. Now, if you do have a great product, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this video probably do, then you can use lesson number 7, which is starting to introduce referral schemes, right? So this, once again, plays the numbers extremely well. Say, for example, you spent $300 to acquire a client and they pay you $3,000. That's great. You spent $300 to make $3,000. Then what happens if that $3,000 client refers another $3,000 client? You spent nothing again to make another $3,000. Whereas if you were to acquire that client through your normal outreach method or your normal ads, sort of system, it'll be another $300 down, right? These numbers are made up. It could be much higher than this, it could be much lower, but it's basically painting a picture to show you that referrals, once again, are like free money. You're not spending anything to acquire these clients, and it will scale your business so much further, right? And in fact, the value of your business will completely multiply. I was on a call with someone who's very successful in terms of they built 2 agencies and exited them. They're now working on another, so technically 3 agencies, but exited 2 companies, both agencies. And they said, when you're coming to sell, you need to be very careful of your costs. Because say, for example, you've got a 5x multiple on your business, right? On the profit margin. Every dollar you spend that is a cost is actually taking away $5 from the valuation of your business if you have a 5x multiple. So if you can start to rely on referral schemes to grow your company and word of mouth, it's going to make your valuation significantly higher rather than constantly spending money to acquire new clients. So this might go over a few people's head, it might be a little too technical, but relying on referrals in terms of the numbers and the way the maths work, it makes your business significantly more scalable, significantly more profitable, and more sellable, right? A higher valuation, so you make more money on that exit. So lesson number 7 is to rely on those referrals, build positive word of mouth and goodwill with the market, and it will take you much further. Lesson 8 is to maximize your LTV. So this is pretty much what I've just spoken about. You want to minimize churn with your client, and you want to maximize LTV, which stands for lifetime value of a customer. If you can maximize this, it means you can eventually spend more to acquire a client and make the same profit and have the same valuation of your business, but get more clients on. And it means that cash flow is going to be so much easier, right? If you bring a client on and they stay for 12 months, paying you every single month, that's the equivalent of having to go out and find 12 clients who are going to pay you for 1 month. It's so much better to have that one client that's paying you for 12 than 12 paying you for 1. I learned this the hard way when I very first started my business. I was so focused on sales that I was neglecting the product ever so slightly. Still didn't watch it like crumble down. It wasn't, you know, God forbid, too bad, but I could have focused on the product slightly more. And that's why I want to teach you watching this. Don't rush to make those sales. Don't go too far and just focus on sales and neglect everything else, because it will harm your business, it will harm your reputation, harm goodwill in the market. So really focus on maximizing your LTV, lifetime value with customers, build good relationships, and just be there to support them when they need it. I promise you it's harder work in the short term, but it's far, far, far better in the long run. So maximizing LTV or lifetime value of your customers is going to really help you blow up your agency. Now, lesson number 9 is actually to track your numbers. So it's all good me saying this, all good me throwing numbers around, $300 to acquire a customer, $3,000 per customer, etc. But what happens if you don't track these numbers? They're useless. In fact, you don't even know what these numbers are if you don't track them. Having a system to track your numbers effectively is vital, right? You don't need an expensive CRM to do this, especially if you're just getting started. I was doing this on a Google sheet when I was making £30,000 every month. And I'm sure there's much bigger businesses out there that run off just Google Sheets. I'm not trying to say I've got a big business there. But the point is, if you don't know your numbers, you're just not going to succeed. Everything will be like guesswork. You have nothing to base your judgment on, nothing to base your movements on, nothing to base your actions on. So it's going to make it much, much harder. So track your numbers. Make sure you have your finger on the pulse of these numbers specifically. How much it costs you to acquire a client, how long a client stays with you, and what's the lifetime value of a client, how many clients are you losing a month, and what is the profit margin of your business. Because once again, it's all good having a really high turnover business, making loads of money, but if your profit's only like 5%, what's the point in even running that business? It's just, you're not making much money from it. So those are the 4 things that I recommend always tracking, regardless, and you can literally do that in a spreadsheet. You can just see how much did it cost me in terms of software or ads or content to acquire this customer, and obviously put in time involved there as well. Just track this over time, right? Track your LTV over time, track your profit over time, and you'll see hopefully those metrics increase. And if they are, then you're on the right path. You don't need to overthink things. Just keep doing what you're doing, follow the path, and your agency will grow. And that leads me on to the final point, lesson 10, and that is to invest in your sales. It's so hard to do this all yourself. I definitely couldn't do all this myself. I needed to learn from a mentor. I needed to invest in the systems, invest in the tools to help me do this. So you can't really do this yourself. You can, but it's going to take a lot of lessons, it's going to take a lot of losses, and you can get there significantly quicker. Like for example, these lessons alone won't be the only things to get you to those $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 months. You'll need to do things like identify the correct market for your business to be in, which you probably won't learn from watching these gurus on YouTube and even from some of my videos. You'll need to optimize your offer to make sure it's attractive to cold audiences, so people who don't know you want to buy into your service or your product. Finally, have a proven system that will consistently generate traffic that will land on your page and help you book more sales calls and make more sales for your business. If you need help with any of the above and you're already running an agency, you're a coach, or you're running a consulting business with a few clients, but you're stuck looking to get to the next level, just click the link in the description, book a call with me, and we'll see if we can help. I'll see you on the next one.